Today, we'll go over how the two of you can become super savers while still enjoying some fun now. Welcome to Couple Money, a podcast focused on helping spouses get on the same page, dump their debt faster, and get on the path to financial freedom together. I'm your host, Elle Martinez. This podcast is brought to you by Coastal Credit Union. Coastal's mission is to help you live a better life by offering you a better way to bank. Learn how by visiting bankbetter.org. Last week, we discussed 3 key numbers to track and master your money, and one of them was your savings rate. How much you save can have an incredible impact on how fast you reach your big financial goals. Here's the deal though. Unless you have a stash of cash underneath your mattress or an inheritance coming up soon, that money is probably coming out of your budget. So how do you become a super saver without deprivation? Can you boost your savings rate and still have some fun? I believe you can find that balance, but you need a plan and a system to set things up. That's why I'm glad Joe Mecca from Coastal Credit Union is back. He is the quintessential saver, and today he's sharing how he's grown his savings while still enjoying life. In this episode, we're going to dig into finding your current savings rate, some tax advantage ways to save more to give you a double win, and a plan to notch up and boost your savings. You ready? Let's get started. I think savings is such a foundational skill with your finances, no matter where you are in your financial journey. Like you mentioned, emergency funds, that's one of the first steps to have to give you that stability, to help you when things come up. Like right now, we're in the middle of a pandemic. But, even on a smaller scale, we have emergencies pop up. It's good to have that safety net. Savings can also be important as we move further through our financial journey when we're talking about saving for goals, whether it's vacations, maybe a house down payment, or, you're saving up for starting a business or a family. So I want to jump into that. Like, how can we save more? First of all, let's talk about savings rate, because I think this is a number that isn't discussed as much. When we talk about savings rate, it's how much money do you have that you're putting directly towards saving, but you can get really nitty gritty on this. So Joe, how do you calculate your savings rate?
Oh, it's going to be a hot topic. I hope nobody goes and tries to look up savings rate on like Reddit afterwards, because you'll get 150 different opinions. So I look at it, it's simple division. That's how I look at it. I take, what did I save this year? And I look at it year over year. I actually break it out paycheck by paycheck, but the big picture is year over year. What did you save this year? And then divide that by what you could have saved. Mm-hmm. So what that ends up looking for me is, I take my retirement account contributions, I take money that goes into investment accounts, anything that goes into cash, anything that goes into a savings account, and then divide that by after-tax income. It's your gross minus all your taxes. You're going to have to not count your spending toward your medical premiums or those kind of things. The other deductions that aren't taxes, those are really spending. So it's like, okay, so what did you contribute toward your savings? And then what could you have saved? So I look at 401k contributions. I look at IRA contributions, anything that I put into my brokerage account. I then look at both of my HSA account and my money market account. And I just look at the net change on the year. So where did I start in January? Okay. Where am I now? And because those are accounts that money is going in and out of. But I just want to see, what's the net on that? Even though those are savings accounts, they're more short term. So even if I was contributing a certain amount every week or every pay period into either one of those accounts, at some point during the year, there is a little bit that gets backed out and gets spent. So I look at the net change for the year and then take that total and then divide that by, okay, what was my gross pay minus all the taxes that I've paid already, and then come up with a percentage. So I do that 2 ways. One, I look at the actual for the year. Yeah. But then I said earlier, I do look at what it is paycheck by paycheck.
Mhm.
So that's kind of my target. I like automating.
Oh,
One
yeah.
part of the one number's part of the automation, and one's the real number that you hit. So yeah, I aim to save like 55-60% of each check, but in reality, at the end of the year, it nets out to. Last year, I ended up about 40% savings
Yeah.
rate. This year, it's been about closer to 50 so far.
That's incredible. I think that's fantastic that you have a system. I think that's important wherever you are with savings to create a system to make it automatic. Automating it makes such a huge difference. I don't think you started saving like 50-60%. How did you build up to that number? That wasn't an overnight thing.
Not at all. I started closer to 3 or 5%.
Hey, you
So
started.
I started, and when I was younger, I was made it a point to I'm going to contribute to my 401k plan. I'm going to make sure I
Mhm.
get that match amount too, and make sure I'm getting that every year. And then what I started to do is, as you get raises, as you get promotions,
Mhm.
and suddenly your income's increasing, I've made it a point to first apply that difference into
Mhm.
savings. So rather than have lifestyle inflation and suddenly it's like I can spend more, if I was suddenly taking home an extra $100 a pay period, I'd try to figure out a way to make 75 of that go to savings and 25 go to my spending. So it's inflate the savings first, and then you can inflate the lifestyle later on. Same thing as I've
Mhm.
reduced expenses. I've paying off student loans, paying off credit cards, paying off auto loans, those kind of things. As I've freed up that amount of money from cash flow, I try to apply it to savings first rather than to spending. And for me, it's all been about, how do I get those ratios? I look at
Mhm.
what am I saving versus what do I need to live off of? Trying to get that closer to the point where eventually I could be what I have saved up is what I could live off of for a period of time,
Yeah.
hopefully forever. It's just as you find new sources of saving, be diligent about putting that into savings.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. As income increases, whether it's you switching jobs, get a raise, or if you're paying down debt and now you don't have that debt, to yes, you'll have a little bit of a lifestyle increase. You don't have to live like a poor college kid your entire adulthood. You automate some of that and funnel that into savings because I think that's so important to kind of get into that habit because you're not going to miss it. If
Right.
this is a raise, you haven't got it quite yet, but you funnel whatever percentage you choose, you get the benefit of, yeah, we got a little bit more in our buffer, but now we also have much more in our savings. So I think that is absolutely key. And then looking for opportunities. I think for us, when we paid off everything except for the mortgage, I mean, that's an extra 600 a month. It was crazy. We had the student loans, the car loan, and credit cards. That 600 now, there's that temptation. Oh my goodness, I have 600, I can, blow it. Or you can say an extra 200 for us is great, 400 to savings. And that just keeps cycling or whatever number you decide to go with. So that's a great point.
Something like that, it's easy to start small too.
Yeah.
Like I said early on, it was maybe 3 or 5% savings rate. And as things improved, you can grow that. If you add a percent or two every year, suddenly you get places.
Yeah, and I think some employers are starting to offer that because I had that happen to me at one job where you set up contributions and I'll ask you, do you want to increase it? Like after a year, do you want to automate that? And I thought, you know what, let me do it now because I probably will forget next year or you get busy and you put it off. But if you tell it, hey, this year 5%, next year 6%, whatever it is you're starting at and growing it makes sense. And then I know for me, as okay, this will show you how much of a nerd I am, but I call to get a better deal with the internet. And if I save even $15 a month, doesn't sound like much, but throughout the year it adds up. I will immediately, as soon as I hang up that phone, start increasing the transfer to savings by $15 a month. That way it's not just me saving money, but actually I can see the money being moved into savings that I can use for the goals I'm really looking forward to.
I am in the same boat. I've tried to cut out because we talked about paying down loans, but
Yeah.
just trying to cut out different expenses along the way too. I ended up canceling my cable.
Mhm.
It was my biggest bill. And it just kept going up, but I wasn't getting the value out of it. I was mostly using the internet and watching streaming services. So I called up and said, hey, this is my biggest bill. You're charging me more than what your competitor offers for internet. If I compare the two, I'm better off just switching. And they didn't match it. They wouldn't match it. So I left. I'm going to switch to your competitor. And now I'm paying a third of what I was paying a year ago.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying it a lot more. I've got better service and I'm not missing all the TV channels. I'm getting what I want off of streaming. I'm spending more time watching online videos or just reading. And you'd think being at home, I'd be watching more TV. I'm watching less. A lot of that probably has to do with the fact that there's no sports right now, but yeah. And then you could take that difference and you could you apply that to savings. So anytime I retool my spending, the first place I look is, can I put a little bit more into my savings account?
Yeah.
You have to find a lifestyle that you're comfortable with, and then a savings rate that goes with it. And then, now figure out a way to fund that lifestyle for as long as possible. And if it's, not quite as luxurious as some people, then so be it. If you can get your savings rate way up and suddenly you go like, okay, well, if I live off of this percentage of that for a long period of time, that means I could spend a little bit more. So now you can adjust your lifestyle up because you're building to build a better, to sustain a better lifestyle. It's all about, doing the math and getting comfortable with where you are and then having the discipline or the automation.
Yes.
I'm always going to go to automating, but having the ability to, continue to feed that savings and building that up year over year over year.
Yeah. And I think you're right. Savings really is about choices, moving your money to, who and what matters most to you. And there's different ways to save. Like you've mentioned a few different accounts, almost sound like ABCs with the IRA, the HSA and everything. But I wanted to talk to you, a lot of families, couples, they are saving for several goals, they want to go on a vacation. Maybe they're saving for a house in a few years, or they're thinking of starting a business. What are some different account options that they should consider? What are the differences, for example, like a regular savings account versus a money market account or a CD?
Let's talk specifically about savings, and then we'll put the retirement and long-term investment stuff aside. But for short-term savings or near-term savings, you're going to want money that you're going to have access to. It's got to be liquid. So your options really are, you can put it in a savings account, a high-yield checking account, which is, a checking account that actually pays you a dividend. You can put it in a money market account, which really is an enhanced savings account. You're going to earn a little bit more interest off of a saving or than you will on a regular savings account. May have some other restrictions around it, but generally they're largely the same as a savings account. Or you can put it into a certificate account where you're locking up that money for a period of time in exchange for a better rate. The beauty of all of those are your rate of return is going to be guaranteed. It's going to be part of your agreement. Unlike an investment account where you're in the market and you're subject to things going up or down with time and having the potential to lose your investment, you're not going to have that with a savings account. You're not going to earn quite as much on the rate as you could in a good market, but you don't run the risk of losing that money either, which makes it ideal for the short term.
Yeah, I think that's perfect too. Talking about your goal timeline. If you are wanting a down payment for a house, you want to make sure that money that you put in is in there. You don't want to take your chances. Sure, it could double or it could drop. I know this year, just the way it timed out, we opened a brokerage account. We were putting money in, and this has been a roller coaster year. April was a little bit painful.
Yes.
But, thankfully, we're thinking more long term, so it did bounce back. But if you're looking short term for that money, you don't want to have that volatility. You want to have that stability, and then enhancing your savings, like you mentioned, with accounts like a money market or a certificate of deposit. At least you know that you're earning a little bit more.
And you're going to have access when you need it. So anything under, if you're going to need that money inside of, let's say, 5 years, you're probably going to want to go with a savings or savings type account versus longer term investment where you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen in the long term either. Yeah. But in the long term, things tend to trend a little bit more positive.
Yeah. For example, when we talk about investing, every year it could be very volatile, but if you look at the long-term trend, it does increase. So identifying about what the time range is for your goals can allow you to find the right account for your money and your savings. This segment is brought to you by Coastal Credit Union. If you want to live better, you got to bank better. Find out how at bankbetter.org. Before we wrap up, I want to focus on a few key takeaways I got from preparing this episode. The first one is start as early as possible. Don't worry about being able to stash away 20, 30, 40% of your income. Joe had pointed out that it was closer to 3 to 5% when he first started, which is about where we began too. Once you get started and you have some momentum, it's much easier to slowly raise that rate so that you're still comfortable with how you're living now while still saving more money. The second key takeaway is pay yourself first. And this is much easier when you're automating those transfers. Having a certain percentage or amount put away every month makes it easier on you, and you're more likely to stay on target. And then finally, minimize the lifestyle inflation. Take any bonuses, raises, windfalls, tax refunds, whatever. Set aside a portion of that to go towards savings. You can still enjoy most of that now and save more without missing that money. And if you want to discuss how to become a super saver, please chat with us on Facebook in the Thriving Families group. We love to swap stories and tips and support one another with our big financial and other goals. You can go to couplemoney.com/FB. We'd love to see you there. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Special thanks to Joe for being a part of this. And if you're interested in tracking and saving your money, I'll have the resources in the show notes, including our free 5 days to 5K course, which takes you through our system on how you can find, save, and earn extra money to hit your financial goals faster. Just head over to couplemoney.com/5K. And next week on the podcast, we're preparing for open enrollment. It's coming up. For many of us, it's that time of year where we have to choose crucial options like healthcare. I want you to be prepared, so we're going to go over what couples need to talk about to find the best health plan option for their family. So if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed. You don't want to miss out on that episode. We're on iTunes, Radio Public, Spotify, wherever you catch your podcast. Our theme song is from Gentle Regime, additional music by Lee Rosevere, and artists from Audio. Finally, and most importantly, thank you so much for your support. I appreciate you not only listening and sharing your favorite episodes, but sending in those questions, chatting with us in the Facebook group, and keeping me up to date on what the two of you are tackling. I hope you have a wonderful week. Take care.